360 cameras have come a long way, and now we have a ton of options. This is the Insta360 X4 Air, and today we're going to talk about it. All right, before we jump into the review, let me remind you, Insta360 does not get to see this video before it comes out. They did not pay for this review. However, they did send this over for us to check out. So let's go ahead and get into the review. All right, let's go over some specs of the camera. Let's start off with the physical features. We're gonna compare the X4 Air versus the X5. As far as screen size, you're gonna lose a little bit of real estate. The X4 Air has a 2.5-inch screen versus the X5 at 2.7 inches. The big win for the X4 Air is its lightweight at 165 grams versus the X5 at 200 grams. So it's super lightweight and easy to carry. The battery is going to be a bit smaller at just 2010 milliamp hours, which gives you about 88 minutes of runtime. It does support quick charging. Of course, it still takes a micro SD card. It does borrow some of the best features from the X5. It has replaceable lenses, and it has Insta360's great adaptive tone. The sensor size is a little bit smaller. It has dual 1/1.8-inch sensors. The max resolution for the X4 Air is 8K at 30 frames per second. As you can see, next to the X5, the overall size is quite a bit smaller. So if you're new to 360 cameras, this is definitely going to be the most inexpensive way to get into the market. If you're looking to buy a brand new camera that is the latest technology and you want to be most cost effective, this is going to retail at $439.99 here in the US. Unfortunately, as of today, it's not available in North America just yet, but it will be going on sale soon, so stay tuned. All right, so let's talk about my experience with the X4 Air. User experience wise, it was pretty much identical to any other Insta360 360 camera or action camera for that matter. All of the menus are the same. The app experience is the same. Even the experience on the computer is the same editing wise. So if you've ever used an Insta360 camera, that is going to be pretty much exactly the same. Nothing really changed in that fashion. Where things start to differ is the X4 Air, unfortunately, because of the compromises that it's making to slim down the size of the camera and the weight and some of the cost effectiveness of it, you are losing some of the abilities that you get in the X5. So for instance, you do lose the ability to have pure video, unfortunately. So if you do need something like a quality night shooting experience, the X5 is still going to be your better bet. If you need something where you're going to need a more professional looking graded type footage, these cameras may not even be the bet for you. If you're looking for high quality professional workflow graded footage, you may need to look elsewhere outside of the Insta360 ecosystem altogether. But as far as the X4 Air in broad daylight, it holds up really well. It doesn't really look that much different from the X5. If you put it side by side, of course, you're going to be able to tell. If you zoom in past 200%, of course, you're going to be able to tell because the sensor sizes are a lot smaller. But if you're just looking at it 1 second and then you look at the other footage another second, you're probably not going to be able to tell, because the adaptive tone works really well and the sensors are still really great. So for most people, the X4 Air during the daytime and in your normal situations is gonna be fine. So I think really the only difference is if you're looking for night quality, the X4 Air is gonna lack. So if you need the pure video mode, you're gonna have to go with the X5. Another area, unfortunately, where there was some compromise made for the X4 Air is high quality or high frame rates. So if you need extreme slow motion, or if you need just slow motion in general, the X4 Air is probably not going to be your best bet because it doesn't really have a lot of high frame rate options. You're not really going to be able to do really great slow motion. So again, the X5 kind of takes the cake in that area. And of course, one other compromise, and this is really just because of the size of the camera. And again, I'm calling these compromises because they're not cons. You're making compromises just because you're buying into the form factor of this camera. And again, the cost effectiveness of this camera, the battery size. The X5 battery is quite a bit larger. And of course, you can buy the higher capacity batteries for the X5. So the battery life is going to be a lot smaller on the X4 Air. But again, that's, you know, unfortunate. It's just because it's a smaller unit. So if I had one con against the X4 Air, it's really the battery again. And this is more of a con against all of Insta360's cameras in general, and not just all their cameras, but their 360 cameras. The fact that you can't swap the batteries between the 360 cameras is pretty annoying and just a waste of resources in general. I have to now buy batteries for my X4 Air. I have to buy them for my X5. And if I had an X4 or an X3 and so on, I have to buy new batteries for all of them. So that just seems like a waste of resources. It's a pain for customers. If I had a bunch of batteries for my X5 and I wanted to downgrade or, you know, move into the X4 Air system, now I have to buy a whole new bunch of batteries. So it's just more of an annoyance than anything. And I wish they would sort of sort that out in the next versions coming up so that we don't have to keep buying new batteries. So Insta360, if you're listening to this, you know, maybe we can figure that out for the future. All right, next thing I'm going to talk about is audio. So I took the X5 and the X4 Air out and we did some field tests. I used both of them on selfie sticks and I did sort of like an arm's length away test, this versus that type test. And then I did the X4 Air by itself. And then I did a test with this, which is a windscreen accessory that you can buy separate. And it has some foam inside of the windscreen itself to cover the microphones. And then I did a couple tests with the accessory, which is the Air mic that you can buy and pair with either the X5 or the X4 Air. And then I used the mic windscreen dead cat and I compared all of them. So you can hear them here in just a second and see for yourself which one sounds the best. And you can let me know in the comments below. All right, so we're gonna do a little audio test today. Got the X4 Air on my left side, got the X5 on the right side, and I have them both set to advanced wind reduction because it's pretty windy out. I'm here at a baseball field, and you can probably see things blowing around. It's pretty breezy. You can probably hear the wind. So we're just gonna walk around real quick and just do a little wind comparison test and see which one does better with noise reduction. And there's a lawnmower going on in the background, so maybe you will see if it picks up that. Also, this is probably a good time to see if the adaptive tone looks a little bit different on the two cameras. The X4 Air runs HDR mode in 8K, 30 frames a second. The X5 does not allow you to run the HDR mode at 8K. So you are only allowed to run HDR mode in 5.6K. So that's a little bit interesting. But the wind is picking up, so we'll see how the microphones hold up. Pretty breezy day out here. Cars driving by. All right, we'll see how that goes. All right, so this is gonna be test number 2. Right now, I am using the windscreen protector that sits on top of the X4 Air to see if it'll block some of the wind and cut down some of that noise, and see if it'll help reduce any of the wind, while also still using the high wind reduction setting on the X4 Air in addition to the windscreen. So we'll see if it works. Also gonna try to pass by the lawnmower again and see if we can get that picked up while having the windscreen on. The windscreen accessory also comes with a bunch of additional foam pieces. So there we go, wind's picking up. Over time, if the foam starts to deteriorate, you can replace it. You can just pop them in and replace it. I'm gonna get closer to the lawnmower here and see if we can pick it up. All right, so I'm gonna do the last test here. I'm gonna throw on the Air mic and we're gonna compare that against all the other options. Okay, so right now I'm using the mic Air, and there's a few ways you can actually use this mic. You can use it like I'm using it right now, which I'm just holding it out in front. You can use it with a magnet to clip it on your shirt like a lapel mic, and then they have a windscreen that you can put on top. It's sort of like a dead cat that you'd see on a more traditional shotgun type mic. You can also use it in two different modes. There's the mode I'm using it in right now, which is not using any noise reduction, and then there is a noise reduction mode, which I will turn on in just a second, and we'll see what that sounds like versus how it's being used right now. And then I will turn it on with the noise reduction and turn on put on the dead cat and see if that helps. It's still pretty windy out here, so we'll do all the tests and see which one sounds better. Okay, so now I'm using the mic, same without the dead cat, but I have turned on the noise reduction, and we're gonna see if it sounds any different. The wind is still pretty crazy. It still feels pretty breezy, and we'll see if that noise reduction has helped at any point here. I'm also not using it without the dead cat, as you can see, and we'll see if the noise reduction is good enough to help without it. Okay, so now we're doing the test with the dead cat without the noise reduction, and we'll see if just the dead cat alone can be just enough to kill the noise and not have to use the noise reduction on the microphone. We'll see if that is enough to isolate my voice. Again, there's still cars driving in the background and the highway, and we've got some background noise, and then the wind is still pretty heavy. As you can see, there's probably some trees blowing in the background. You can see them blowing behind me or in front of me, and we'll see if that helps. Okay, so now I'm using the mic with the noise reduction on, and I've put the dead cat on. So we'll see if the noise reduction plus the dead cat helps the wind reduction and see if that actually helps isolate my voice a lot better. There's also some noise in the background. There's a plane flying over. There's some highway noise and some people driving around. So we'll see if the noise reduction plus the dead cat actually does the job. All right, so you can see there from the test that between the X5 and the X4 Air, there wasn't too much of a difference. I think the X5 itself actually was a little bit better, but again, if you're not hearing them side by side, you're probably not going to be able to tell the difference. They both did pretty good. I think the noise cancellation that they both have on board is decent. It's not the greatest, but if you're in a pinch and that's all you have, I think it works okay. I don't know if I heard enough of a difference to buy this accessory. I don't know if this accessory is actually worth buying. So maybe save your money. If you think it's worth it and you heard a difference, go ahead and pick it up. But I don't know if I would have purchased this accessory myself. It does not allow you to put the lens cover on, so it's kind of a pain in the butt to have to take it off and on every time. So just something to think about. It does come with extra little foam inserts. So inside there's little pieces of foam, and then over time, as they break or deteriorate, you can replace those. So again, I don't know if this is necessarily worth it, for the price. Something to think about. However, I think this is probably the best bet for the money, and it's pretty inexpensive. I think this mic works pretty good. And the coolest thing about this particular mic is it's Bluetooth. So you can connect it to not only these, you can connect it to other Bluetooth sources if you need it. And it also comes with a USB-C receiver so that you can use it for other devices. So for the price of this, I think this is actually worth it. And it's also a magnetic lapel mic. So you can actually use it like that. So I think this is probably the best bet. If you were going to buy an accessory, this is probably the one to get. All right, so let's talk about who this camera is made for. So just like most 360 cameras, this fits right into the categories of all those. Lifestyle, content creation, adventure, vlogging. You could fit this camera right in there and it's gonna work perfectly. Who I really think this camera's for is somebody who's looking to get into the 360 camera market and doesn't necessarily know which camera to get and doesn't necessarily want to buy something as expensive as an X5 or even something like the DJI Osmo 360. Those are flagship cameras. They're really expensive and it's a lot to bite off, you know, spending $500+ right off the bat, and all you're getting is just the camera. Those are also made for higher professional workflows, and I know they have some great features, but if you're not someone who really wants to buy the top-notch bells and whistle camera, and you're not sure if you're even going to use all the features, this is the perfect camera for that. If you've never owned one before, again, this is the perfect camera to get into because I don't think buying something like a used X4 or even a new X4 with older technology is really going to do the job. Why wouldn't you buy something with newer technology that has some of the newer features? And one of the biggest features that this carries down from the X5, which is the replaceable lenses, is right there, sitting right there for you. The other thing about it is at the price point that you're buying this, instead of buying the X5, you could buy this camera and then also have room in your budget to buy accessories, which is great. So if you need to buy a few more accessories, something like the wireless mic, maybe even like a longer selfie stick, or you know, a carrying case or a dive case or whatever you're looking at for accessories, you'll have extra room in your budget to purchase that. So I think this is just a great entry-level camera for 360 users. That is somebody who's looking to get into the 360 market, who's never used one before, and really wants to get their feet wet. You know, obviously, if you're looking for something to shoot at night, or if you need slow motion, or if you want those extra features, then this is probably not going to be the camera for you, and you're just going to waste your time or be frustrated with the camera. So the last thing I want to touch on is, where does this really fit into the lineup of Insta360's 360 cameras? Theoretically, I think it really replaces the X4, even though we have the X5, which I guess technically, you know, replaced the X4 when it came out earlier this year or last year. I think this really replaces the X4. If you are on the fence and you wanted to buy the X4, you know, this is now gonna fit that need because it's got all those features and more, but it's got the replaceable lenses. Again, if you're looking for all the bells and whistles, the X5 is going to be your best bet, and it has the replaceable lenses. So this is now fitting that gap of the cheaper price point, but it also has the replaceable lenses, which I think is probably the most underrated feature of the camera itself. So that's just something to think about. And I think you'll start to slowly see the X4 phase out over time. Eventually, you know, it's probably just going to go away altogether and you won't see it available. And the Air and the X5 will be the only ones available. And then eventually, you know, it'll probably be the Air, the 5 and the 6, or the 5 Air or the 5S, or, you know, whatever the next version of the 5 is going to be. So I think that's kind of where it fits for right now. It's, you know, again, it's an interesting choice that they made it, but being that it's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more pocket friendly, technically, it's a little bit lighter. I don't know if, you know, the 15 or so grams makes that much of a difference. I don't know if the size makes that much more of a difference if you're using it in certain situations. Maybe it does. You know, holding it in your hand, you don't feel that much. Maybe if you're holding it in one of those crazy mouthpieces or dangling it on a headpiece or something, or, you know, putting it in a scenario where the 15 grams actually does make a difference. Maybe that's a use case for the size, but the trade-offs for the sensor, you know, I don't think I would trade off 15 grams for the better sensor if I was using it in a professional setting. So that's just my 2 cents. But I think overall, it's a great camera. I think it's more of a starter camera. And if you're looking to get into the 360 world and you've never tried it, this is probably one of the better cameras to look at because of the cost effectiveness and the fact that you can add some accessories to go with your 360 camera. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the X4 Air. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. If you like this video, make sure you leave a comment below, hit the like button, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.